Live from Sydney. Adam, please bring us up to speed on the aid operations.
Yes, well, aid does continue to slowly trickle into Tonga. Over the weekend, we have seen a number of different countries delivering aid to the Pacific island nation. The latest is that we had 3 planes arriving from Australia late yesterday, delivering vital supplies. We also have a number of Navy vessels as well from New Zealand, Australia and the UK. New Zealand, the only ones who have made land so far with their Navy vessel, which can deliver up to 70,000 litres of clean water every day. We've also had a big response from Japan, who are sending some flights over, and China as well. But one of the main issues at the moment, as you mentioned, is, of course, COVID-19 and trying to keep the virus out of Tonga. They've only reported 1 case so far to the World Health Organization. And as you can imagine, there are concerns that aid workers or military personnel arriving in the country could possibly bring the virus, and that would be the worst thing that could happen at the moment, considering the crisis that the country is facing. So aid drop-offs are having to be contactless at the moment, and the Tongan authorities are asking that the delivery of aid could be spaced out. They only have a very small airport in the country. They don't want it to be overwhelmed. We already heard reports the other day that the locals were cleaning ash off the runway to try and prepare it for planes to land. So as well as being desperate for supplies, it's also having to be very carefully coordinated to ensure that they're not overwhelmed, both with COVID and logistically as well.
Now, Adam, there were always fears that this underwater volcano could erupt. And when we look at the devastation caused by this volcanic eruption and the tsunami, we can certainly say that it's a huge there's shortage of water in Tonga. Communication lines have been disrupted. So what I would like to ask you here is, was Tonga taken by surprise?
Well, I think there's always a risk of this happening, specifically in this region and in this area. And I think a lot of people were prepared. I was reading a report today saying that people at school learnt about the ring of fire and some of the possible risks that could come from volcanoes erupting. So people were aware of it. There are questions, obviously, over the tsunami warning system, over whether or not people should have been alerted earlier to the waves coming and the water coming. And considering so far we're seeing a situation where a lot of houses have been destroyed, a lot of critical infrastructure has gone down, there will be questions asked about whether or not the country was fully prepared to deal with something like this. It's obviously very difficult. It's an act of nature. We've seen a huge eruption. NASA said it was one of the biggest eruptions reported ever. The fumes from the eruption were seen in space. So there's definitely problems that this has caused, and there's definitely questions over how prepared the country. But it's very difficult. It's obviously a very remote location. It's a fairly poor country. It relies heavily on tourism, so it's very difficult to be prepared for something like this. And as they are finding at the moment, they're very isolated, very remote, and it's very difficult to get aid and support to them. So they are facing challenges on a number of fronts.
All right, Adam Hancock in Sydney, thank you very much for that update.